أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم اللعين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد ومحمد يا إخواني وأخواتي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear brothers and sisters, may the peace of Allah be upon you, inshallah. So, welcome to everybody. This is the first time I test the direct streaming application on this channel. Inshallah ta'ala, I will share some content on daily basis, at least few times a week. I did the same in my other channels in French, but due to segregation in my country, I'm not able to do this anymore in French language. So, inshallah ta'ala, I will improve my English because it's not my educated tongue or the tongue I use on daily basis. But I have a lot of things to share, even things which are only available to French audiences. So for those who don't know, France had a long history of Islamic studies and stuff like that that are not translated in English language, so it can help the audience. Anyway, today I have some text to present. It is written in English from, I think, the co-working of a Filipino martial artist and his student, which is an American or a white American, to be clear, because of course we all know that indigenous Americans were victim of colonialism, colonialism in France. Sorry, I have some hard time to say it in English, and there are barely any survivors of what happened in history. Salut. So, salut to Claire. So it is a very interesting book written by a Christian, so a Christian author. You can see his picture here. This is the student. This is the founder of the system. So it is Filipino combat systems based on Eskrima, Kali, Arnis, Sikaran. And the book is called An Introduction to an Ancient Art for Modern Times. So it is an introduction to an ancient art for modern times. So still relevant. So there is a question of Sabrina who asked me if I'm French. I grew up in France, but I'm not French by ethnicity. And so I had numerous channels in French language, but due to the event, because I'm from southern Lebanese roots, a village which was removed due to conflict with Israel this year, I got to step a little bit back, and I chose, due to some persecution of the states because of my origin and stuff like that, to stop sharing content in French. So thank you for your understanding. So Aida Blaze asked me this question: are you Muslim? Yes, I am Muslim, alhamdulillah. And so bonjour les Français. Donc bonjour à vous, bonjour pour les frères et sœurs du monde entier, bien sûr. Et merci pour l'audience. So I will continue to present a short part of the book, but which is important because it sets the tone of a truth that is neglected in the story of humans. Oh, no. So there is some parts, there is some application, photos, and less that, and there is a retrospective on the birth of the Filipino martial arts. So from the words of the authors, there was indigenous people in the Filipino archipelago, and with time they had contact with some Muslim minority which deported from Indonesia, and which is called the Moro. Moro is a stem word that you can find in Morocco and stuff like that, Mauritania, etc. etc. It's Moors. And the Moors are inhabitant originally of northern Africa, not sub-Saharan Africa, but northern Africa. They are closely related. They are in fact Berbers by ethnicity. And so when the Spanish tried and colonized the Philippines, they seen some kind of Muslim here in the Philippines, which was originally from Indonesia, and they call them Moro. And Moro have still a distinctive set of weapons. So you know the kris from Indonesia. So this is a little version of the kris with its curved blade. And this is the Malay and Indonesian version. And you have the Filipino version, which is quite similar, but broader. This is a Moro kris. So the kris of the Muslim of Philippines, which is bigger and but still retain the distinctive curved blade, even it is a little bit straighter. So what is very interesting in the introduction of the book is that the author, despite being a white American Christian, still links some biblical events to the introduction into the goal of his martial art, which is something very interesting. Very interesting. So there is a review of the system, the use of karambit, numerous weapons, stuff like that. But what catched my eyes was something in the introduction. So this is in the beginning, the martial path. So I will read it for you. Any world, the martial path. So the path of the martial artist or the path of the warriors of Sirat, which is in Arabic Sirat, the way in a certain manner. Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight way, so the martial path. Anyone involved in the study of the martial arts should ask of himself or herself, what is the relevance of the martial path? What should one expect to gain from the dedication, sweat, and toil that is necessary to gain proficiency in any martial art? There are many reasons why individuals begin to train in the martial arts. One must assume that one basic motivation to train is that many people find the experience to be enjoyable. So this is for personal ease or growth or etc. The martial arts are an excellent form of exercise as well as mean of self-defense, which is called in the Melayu, in the Indonesian language, seni bela diri. There are, however, many other less demanding avenues one could take to these ends. In our modern world, we have many physical fitness programs available to us, many of which appeal to our artistic needs. There are numerous means available to us by which we can defend ourselves. We have access to firearms, chemical agents, stun guns, and plethora of other options by which to protect ourselves. Most of these options for recreation, fitness, and defense are all less demanding than the path of the martial arts. In fact, when you choose another way than the way of martial arts, it's like to take an elevator. It's a shortcut, but without these tools, you are basically cooked. Why then do so many of us continue to be attracted to these seemingly anachronistic disciplines, outdated material or way of being? I think our answer to the question of the continuing appeal of the warrior path is that this path embraces principles that are essential to our happiness as human beings. So, by design, the human being is bound to this way. It is an important point. Many of these principles are becoming increasingly scarce in contemporary culture. So the most we advance in time, the most we are removed from our archetypal roots and principles. So there is a degradation, global degradation of the way of living. We live in a society that is becoming increasingly dangerous and increasingly devoid of concepts such as discipline, honor, and spirituality. So 3 points that are really important. And this is, even the book is from 2004, and this is even more the truth 20 years, 21 years later. When we are in a day and period when you can switch and on application have a lot of content that cuts you from discipline, from honor, and from most importantly spirituality. The history of humanity is the story of violence and strife between individuals. So this can be resumed with the fight between good and evil. History is the story of wars and of rumors of wars. In the first book of Genesis, so it is a religious book from the Christian, and even from the Jews, and even book this is accepted by the Muslims. In the first book of Genesis, we find record of the first act of violence, the first murder, in Arabic, jarim, which is gave later the word crime, crime, in French, for example. We find a guilt-ridden man named Cain, قابيل بالعربية, standing before his God, asking the question, opening, am I my brother's keeper? Am I my brother keeper? Suis-je le gardien de mon frère? Point d'interrogation. Mankind has proven itself adept at violence. It has proven that while it might not think of itself as its brother's keepers. It certainly has no problem accepting the world at its brother's executioner. So this is in human nature. Violence is a reality. The capacity for violence is an inherent attribute of our nature. It is part of what we are. Many have come forth over the millennia seeking to offer a solution to violence. So, in modern society, for example, we deny violence. We try to cure violence with jail, with medication to change behavior and stuff like that. Many in the future, we will see implants in the nervous system or the brain or whatever to secrete some substances and stuff like that to remove violence. So violence, it's an inherent part of human, but sometimes it is the victim of negation. And I don't, I think my core belief is to think that violence should be canalized and redirected. And this is what is called sublimation in the area of psychology and stuff like that. So to use the impulse of violence or the sexual impulse of any of that animalistic impulse to tend to higher degrees for the good of the society and of humanity, of course. And so, violence in the reality, the capacity for violence is an inherent attribute of our nature. It is a part of what we are. Many have come forth over the millennia seeking to offer a solution to violence. And you can see like blockbusters movie like Assassin's Creed, for example, that the aim of the antagonist camp of the assassin was to remove violence completely with the apple of Eden and stuff like that. All the world's religions offer peace, even as they often tell you that you must kill to achieve it. So there is a paradoxal nature of violence. Violence can be applied for the good of the collectivity. It is accepted in many societies. Many have offered various paths to peace. With the Roman Empire came to the Pax Romana, offering peace at the tip of a sword. And there is a famous proverb in France. Une personne qui veut la paix prépare la guerre, etc. So a person who wants peace is ready for war and stuff like that. And this is paradoxal, but it is applied and understood widely in the world's society. At the polar opposite of Pax Romana, pacifists such as Gandhi have taught that peaceful resistance to aggression is the only answer to the world woes. And Gandhi was also a controversial figure because, if I'm not mistaken, he had some sexual intercourse with one of these girl nephew or stuff like that. So there is some violence, some dominance, even in the so-called pacifists that flourish all around the world. Violence is here to stay. The capacity for violence is here to stay. How are we control this beast that lives within the man? Can it be caged? Can it perhaps be harnessed and used to productive ends. So those who don't know, harnessed is to put a harness, and harness, one of the name of some Filipino martial arts, are linked to this etymology. We found also in French the word harnacher, un harnais. This is the root of the name of the martial art harness in Filipino tradition. Can it perhaps be harnessed and used to productive ends? And this is the key of sublimation. So to transform an aggressive impulse on something greater, more productive, for the good of a collectivity, for the good of al-ummah. I believe that the martial arts can offer a constructive outlet for our destructive nature. So the nature is destructive, and when we direct it, it can be constructive. You need force to build a structure or something. But you need a vision, and you need to canalize your energy. Force without mastery is waste. In the past, violence was the tool of the strong. If a man was of greater skill, strength, and stature, he could impose his will upon his fellow man. As time progressed, it was discovered that while nature afforded superior size and strength to whom it would, skills was a thing that could be obtained. So, the stature, physical attribute, genetical ability was transmitted, but the skill can be educated, can be refined, can be updated, and can expand. This is the win of the mind over the nature, inherent nature. It was found that training in the art of violence could sway the odds for victory in combat in the favor of those who might not necessarily be the most naturally endowed with the size and strength. As the world population expanded, people began to get in one other way, one other property, and one other nerves. And this is what you see today in the form of colonialism, with some people coming to other land, seize it by force, etc., with the so-called legitimacy of man-made laws, but this kind of violence still exists. Ownership of natural and manufactured resources became the matter of disputes. So someone no doubt discovered that it was often easier to crush someone's heads with a club instead of trying to reason with them over such matter of dispute. So seizing by force, violence, and so on. Mankind came to view violence as a tool. Like all tools, there were those who sought ways to improve upon the original concept. And this is what you find in the Western world since the Industrial Revolution, which is one of the aim was to improve the sharpness of the tools of violence. So it started in the classic times with bladed weapon and stuff like that, and to now we have a way to remove continents, countries with a blink of an eye, for example, which put the earth in danger and the world population on a threat from this kind of technology, which are illegal for a Muslim like me, for example. Over time, in various cultures, fighting systems were codified. This practice varied from the simple instruction in basic techniques that application had proven effective to the more systematic instruction that became various combat styles such as pancration, Greco-Roman wrestling, wushu, kung fu, sumo, and various other systems. Some of these fighting methods still exist in one form or another. So there was a selection, codification, direction from what we can understand to be a more broader maybe system, which includes some striking, some joint manipulation, some wrestling, some basically percussion and close combat application. The history of the martial arts involves two intertwined concepts, one pragmatic, the other esoteric. So it is an important part also of this short introduction of the martial path. The history of martial arts involves two intertwined concepts, one pragmatic, the other esoteric. So one pragmatic meaning one external. This is what's called maybe bua in Indonesian martial art like silat. This is application of the form external application of the art, the external dimension, which is taught in every martial art class without the spiritual aspect. So when you learn a martial art, you learn some movements, maybe in the form in Indonesian martial art, for example, of jurus, like kata style movement. So it gives you the basics, so it gives you a way to speak. It's like the alphabet. So with it, you can build words, you can build sentences, you can ask question, and you can conclude a fight. So this is interesting. This is still related to some archetypal esoteric meaning, but when you study only the external part of martial arts, you remove it from its origin and from his esoteric باطن بالعربية الظاهر والباطن الظاهر external باطن internal. And so removing the باطن, it is in fact denying it. And this is the game of the devil. Remove the origin, remove the link between human and God. So the history of martial arts involved two intertwined concepts, one pragmatic, the other esoteric. The earliest form of combat were merely practical training methods for passing on skills for protection and for conquest. It was not until much later in the history of combat that the idea was put forth that martial training might offer something beyond fighting skills. Over time, the idea developed that martial training might offer additional benefits such as physical fitness and coordination of body, mind, and spirit. It is a very important point here. So, over time, maybe because the new generation that were transmitted for the need of war, for the need of conquest, and anytime removed their understanding, it was like a lost tradition because people focuses themselves on the external aspect of martial arts, maybe movement, maybe series of movement, sometimes disconnected from their application or from more deeply their inner meaning. This evidence was lost and can appear curious or paradoxal to a martial art practitioners. Martial art practitioners can consider himself like a kind of only tangible materialist practitioner. But we can see that in many Islamic tradition or even from other religion, Buddhism, Hinduism, etc. Like this book can attest. This book is named, this book on the martial art silat of Banten in Indonesia. It's called La foi et la force. Al-Iman wal-Quwwa, which is the belief and the force. So the two are two different sides of the same coin. And it is important to understand that because it is not the way it is taught in modern martial classes. So over time, the idea developed that it was a resurgence of this idea. This is my correction. Over time, the idea developed that because the seed was existent, it was just in sleep. The idea developed that martial training might offer additional benefits such as physical fitness and coordination of body, mind, and spirit. So it is a question of equilibrium. It is a question of mizan. In the Orient, the martial arts came to be regarded as a discipline that led to spiritual development. In the Orient, the training hall became a microcosm in which life's problem could be addressed, and the technique practiced within became metaphorical representation of how one should address confrontation and adversity of every kind. So in fact, the techniques, the application, the response was a direct application of a subjacent philosophy, mindset, understanding, a way of addressing certain issues in the best way, or even not the best way, a refined way, which reflects the value of the martial art that is taught, studied, and transmitted by a metaphorical approach. And we all know that a book like the Quran is full of metaphorical content. Also, Al-Anajil, Al-Tanakh, etc. Sacred scripture are full of that. This is a way that God Almighty Subhanahu wa Ta'ala chose to address mankind and to make it more refined, more spiritual, more elevated. That's why the man is selected among the animals, for example, الحيوان. With the invention of gunpowder, and the invention of gunpowder is really in the materialistic world a switch between value. This is the epoch of the inversion of values. the last of honorable fights and the victory of evil upon good. There is a switch at this time. With the invention of gunpowder, the martial art took a radical change. While it took years to teach the proper skills of hand-to-hand combat, one could become an effective combatant with a firearm in short order. Armor was rendered ineffective, and the way in which we fought was forever changed. With this tangent came the eventual end of feudal societies, the classic society of the classical world of development, of science, of refinement, the good old time. Feudal societies both in Europe and in the Orient. So there is a switch from this time. Although the hand-to-hand and blade-to-blade fighting arts lost some of their usefulness for pragmatic application with the advent of modern weapons, they continued to play a part in our culture. Today, hundreds of years after their practical application have long since waned, the ancient fighting arts still affect our thinking, and it's still the correct way. We still pay lip service to chivalry in the West. So it's linked to chivalry, it's linked to the Bushido, for example, in Extreme Orient Japan, and to El Futuwa in the Islamic world, in the Arabic world, or also Javan Mard in the Iranian world, Persian world, stuff like that. Pendekar in Indonesian Melayu world. The Japanese and the practitioner of the Japanese fighting art still hold the principle of Bushido in high regard. As we enter in, so there is a link between Bushido, European chivalry, the link is the Middle East, for example. It was a most bigger influence in the classical time. And so there is some common ground all around the world in the good way, which is not only the way of the sword, but also a way of manners. العدو الحرمة, for example, which is still used in the Indonesian world to resume the value. This is from Arabic, but this is used by Indonesian to resume the values of silat, for example, pencak silat and stuff like that. So the ethics, chevaleresque, un comportement chevaleresque. Al-adab. As we enter into the 21st century, it is certain that codes of honor no longer hold the same interest for society that they once did. So in decadent societies, the code of honors is considered as irrelevant, or at least disregarded by the masses. In contrary of the past, which was a pivotal axis. Morality and ethics have given way to hedonism and treachery. We seem to have lost our moral compass, and with this loss, we see the world spiraling into chaos on every front. The world teeters on the brink of global war. This book was written in 2004 for the date of apparition. And nothing is more true than the situation we are in today, in 2025. And his last word, there is no peace. ما في سلام في وجه الأرض. So this is the end of this really interesting text that I wanted to share with you. Written by a Christian, a white American Christian, I think. Maybe this is a word of his master, of the influence of his master. But the text is concise, rich, and it struck my mind when I was able to read it not so long ago. So in the few weeks prior to this video. الله معكم. إلى اللقاء. التمس الدعاء. مع السلامة.